unemployment benefits of $600 a week. That's about to run out. It's reported that for about 2/3 of those people, they are making more than they would if they were actually back at their previous jobs. Well, joining us to talk about this is the national political reporter for Axios, Jonathan Swan. Jonathan, good to see you again.
You too.
We were just talking to Congressman Dan Bishop about this, but do you think that they're actually going to be able to come to a consensus on this bill? We've seen it become pretty political in the previous bills.
I do. They are a long way apart. Just on the last round of calls I made, the White House, and when I say they are a long way apart, I mean the White House and Senate Republicans. Not quite as far apart as Senate Republicans are from House Democrats, but, pretty far apart. But I expect that the major issues that are the sticking points being the payroll tax cut, and also the White House wants to make funding for schools, federal funding, contingent upon schools reopening. A number of Republicans don't want that. I think they will be resolved, but I do think it's going to be a really difficult 3 weeks, a lot of messy negotiating, and it really depends how bright a line the president wants to draw on the payroll tax cut, because I just don't think he can get it through. There aren't the votes for it.
Jonathan, you just mentioned the payroll tax cut. Kayleigh McEnany today at the White House briefing talked about it. Let me play what she said about it and then come back to you.
The payroll tax in particular goes to some of our hardest working Americans. The people that it benefits, if you look at the tax structure, are middle income and low income workers. And not only that, there's an incentive on the employer side with a payroll tax holiday that encourages them to hire more too, because it reduces their burden. So it's a very smart policy.
Jonathan, policy aside, we always talk about the fact that the president's got this enormous approval rating among Republicans and no one wants to cross him. So why is it so difficult for Senate Republicans in particular to include this provision in the next COVID bill?
Well, I think that's true. That has held true throughout the last 3.5 years. However, the dynamics right now are a little bit different. There are a number of people in the Republican Senate conference who are worried about the election in November. They're worried about the president's overall standing against Joe Biden, and they're worried about down ballot effects. There are a number of vulnerable Republican senators who feel this acutely. They're also worried about a bloodbath in the suburbs. And so some of the proposals or suggestions that the White House has made, such as reducing funding or not taking as much funding as the Republicans want for coronavirus testing, as one example, they see these as things that are potentially politically toxic for the voters that they want to win over. So there's just not a whole lot of willingness right now to put themselves in a position where Democrats can say, you're not doing the absolute maximum for the American people. They are very, very conscious that in this moment they're being judged by the electorate on, a number of people who are very, very desperate out there. And so that's really the overriding concern. I also don't hear a feeling that they think that President Trump's really going to go after them for crossing him on the payroll tax cut. Yes, he has said he wants this in there, but the assumption I hear when I talk to them privately is that they don't think he's really going to go to the mat on this one and call them out individually.
Interesting. Well, you mentioned the election, Jonathan. The interesting thing about that is you've seen in the last week the president had a shakeup at the top. He replaced Brad Parscale as his campaign manager with Bill Stepien, his deputy campaign manager. He started wearing a mask in public, and he's bringing back the coronavirus. Are these just 3 random events, or are they all happening because he's trying to turn the tide?
Yeah, I think I think they're definitely not random, and I think you're correct to join the dots on them. There's an acknowledgement within the team that they need to do something to turn this around. There have been a number of his advisors who've been trying to get him to wear a mask for weeks, so they're quite relieved that he has turned that corner. As for the campaign, look, I mean, Bill Stepien is highly regarded, smart, certainly knows politics and the map very well. But at least as far as I see it in my reporting, I don't think that the problems they were having were mechanical campaign problems. I think they're much larger than that. And I don't think that they can really be pinned on Brad Parscale. He built a very, very strong digital operation, which they're going to continue to rely on heading into the election.
Speaking of campaigns, Jonathan, I know a lot of people are eager to figure out who the VP for Joe Biden is going to be. Have you heard anything new on that front?
I wish I had. I'd be reporting it. They've been very, very tight, his inner circle on this. Just a few observations from having talked to people who are advising the vice president. One is, people acknowledge in there that you don't really win much with a vice president pick. I mean, people talk about how it's a great boost to have a woman, an African-American woman, et cetera, et cetera. But if you actually look at history, there really isn't the polling data to support the concept that a vice president helps you beyond a marginal effect in their home state. It can, however, hurt you. And I'm certainly what I'm hearing from the Trump people is, given that they're creating this theme, let's say, or narrative that Joe Biden is mentally not with it and is going to be an empty vessel, that puts a whole lot of focus on whoever he picks as vice president, because I expect you're going to see, particularly if it's somebody who is somewhat politically toxic or less popular than Joe Biden, I expect you'll see the Trump campaign saying, this is who you're really electing, and putting really intense focus on the vice president. So I think that the risk is mostly on the downside rather than the upside.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Your analysis, too many people put too much stock in the VP. I've always believed that it cements your standing within your own party. It really doesn't gain anything. It juices your base in a particular area where you have a deficit, whether it's foreign policy or the case Mike Pence helped with the evangelical, but it doesn't really gain you anything per se. So I think your analysis is spot on. Thank you for sharing your insight with us on this bill and everything else that's going on in the campaign. Hope to have you back soon.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
All right, well, the nation's top infectious disease doctor is turning to a bit of a celebrity, if you haven't noticed. Dr. Anthony Fauci has been all over the media lately, but he's not just talking coronavirus. We'll tell you about it when we return.